Today's video, the Volkswagen's unsung hero, the Volkswagen Corrado VR6, the 90s coupe that is okay to drive, that isn't uncool, and it's an absolute hoot to drive. So this is my review on my Corrado VR6. I've had it 10 years and always seems to bring a smile on my face every time I drive it. So we'll start off with the fact that it's 2.9 V6, 190 brake horsepower, and it always puts a smile on my face. It's like if every time I put my foot on the accelerator, it's just sort of dangled its hands down my trousers and giving it a good old rummage. So yeah, 190 brake horsepower, 0-60 in 6.7 seconds, which back in 1994, I think it's impressive today, let alone back in 1994. So Volkswagen decided that they wanted a bit of the market from BMW. They wanted that six-cylinder repertoire that BMW are renowned for. And the G60 was doing a great job. Fantastic engine, I've owned one myself, as I said in my previous video in the Golf. Unfortunately, the G60 is probably not the most reliable things. I've never had an issue with them, but they were renowned to be unreliable. Obviously, this was the 80s, supercharging and turbocharging wasn't the most reliable back then as it is today. And also Volkswagen, it was costing them an arm and a leg to produce this J-Lader supercharger. So they thought, right, okay, we're, as the Americans would say, no replacement for displacement. Let's build a big V6. But they wanted it in the Golf, in the Corrado Passat, and they wanted it to be very, very compact. So they decided to put this VR, which means that basically you've got not a conventional V6 where the V is in the 60 degree category. They've actually pushed it down to 15 degrees, hence why the R means, I think it's inline V6. The Corrado's got the 2.9, the Golf's got the 2.8. Now, without boring you to tears, back 10 years ago I was driving 16 valve Golfs and I wanted a bit of progression. I wanted something the next stage. I'd had a Mark 1 Golf, I had two 16 valve Golfs on the trot and they were fantastic cars and I loved them to bits, but I wanted something. I went from the Mark 1 to Mark 2 and it felt progressive, but I didn't know what else I wanted. I didn't want a Mark 3 16 valve Golf. I'd read the reviews, I didn't really want one. And to be honest with you, I wanted a G60 and I hunted around for a G60. I come across an Edition 1, which I really wanted at the time when the guide sold it. And I was really, really disappointed. So I decided to look for something else. I was just going through the free ads one night and I remember being a 15-year-old lad walking through a town centre and seeing one of these cars parked up and thinking, wow, it just looks the business. That big, fat bottom that it's got. I didn't know really much about them at the time, and I went to see this one, broke all the rules in the book, bought the first one I saw, which is crazy, you should never do that. And yeah, here I am 10 years later doing a YouTube video on it. I should have done one earlier really, but never mind. So I've really wanted a performance car, and it definitely is progressive. What I love about the VR6 Corrado is the fact that it's a Golf, but a little bit extra. So you've got Golf up the front, Passat in the rear, it's got passive rear steer. You look in the dash and you've got Passat instrumentation, bit Porsche-like if you like, because it's got a massive, great big speedo, and actually the two other gauges on the side, you've got the rev counter on this side, on this side you've got the temperature gauge and the fuel gauge. So the speedo stands right in the middle and it's quite prominent, and I really like that. And I remember the first time I drove it, when I picked it up, when I bought it, and I got to a fuel station and I was like, this makes me feel so special. And I love cars that do that. it just made me very, very sunkered down. It's not like a Mark II Golf where you are up high. The screen pillar is a lot higher. This thing, you feel, dare I say, Porsche-like in it. And that's what the idea was with the Corrado. It wasn't just to be a BMW nicker of people that bought BMWs, but it was up against the Porsche 944. And it does feel very Porsche in here. It feels, I say, really special. So, I've got, I'm sat in it now, and just you feel really comfortable. The seats are nice and comfortable, they're heated. But the most of all, it's that soundtrack, which I'm going to demonstrate in a minute. When I've got a nice bit of open road, I'm going to wind down the window. It's that V6 bark that it gives. People have wondered why I kept this and sold my G60, and I loved my G60 to bits. But this thing just puts a smile on your face every single time that I drive it. The gear change is very mechanical. You feel that you're sort of making the effort. The only aid you've got is ABS and traction control, and it's very, very basic, So it's a proper driver's car, and it was known to be, back in the 90s when these things came out, the driver's, the best front-wheel driving car that money could buy at the time, which I think is a good accolade, really, for Volkswagen. It was built in the Carman factory. Build quality is great. It's literally, as I say, I'm staring at a bit of a moshed up dashboard of a Passat, really. So it is, on paper, it shouldn't work. It's a Golf with a bit of Passat, really. But I suppose that's where the best things come into play, where you've got the best of both worlds, really, and getting those sort of, that's how the Mark 1 came about, was bits and pieces were put together, and out came the Mark 1 Golf. And it's a really, really pleasurable drive. It's so much more refined than a Mark II Golf, and I love Mark II Golfs. I've had loads of them, but this thing just is fantastic. It's just so refined, it's well balanced. You've got obviously a hydraulic clutch in this, and you haven't in the Mark II. It's cable. And it's just a nice progressive change from getting from a Mark II Golf into this. Is just, it still feels really modern today. I get in, my wife's Passat, and I'm going to do it. Let's listen to the soundtrack. We've got to do this. This is what it's all about. So let's have a play. Oh, just that bark it makes is fantastic. I've owned this for 10 years. I'm so glad I've never sold it. Biggest thing, not only does it give you a little tickle in the trouser department when you put your foot down, but you also get, I don't know if you noticed in the video, that the rear spoiler came up. So that comes up at 55 mile an hour, and that was just one of the selling points, really. It wasn't just the fact that it came with leather seats. I say it's fantastic. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's just such a theatre to drive. It's so passionate. It's not, I'm probably going to offend some people by saying this, but I get the 20 valve turbo engines being chucked in 16 valve Corrados and Mark II Golfs. I get it, but they don't get that sense of occasion that I do with the VR6 engine. I know it's front heavy. I know it's got all these downsides to it, that it's heavy front ended, it's a heavy old lump, the old VR6 engine, but you can see why so many people put VR6 engines in Mark II Golfs, the R32 engines, because it's that sense of drama, that sense of occasion, that that fizz you get from driving it. It's not all about speed. it's about the drama and the ambience of driving a car and getting that sound and theatre around you, and that was great. I could do that all day long, wouldn't get bored of it. Fantastic.